welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about the 23 books that I want to read in 2023. Last year I did 22 books that I wanted to read in 2022, and I did pretty good with that list. I did pretty good. I wasn't perfect, I didn't get them all read. So at the start of the video, I will go over the ones that I wasn't able to get to in 2022 that are going to carry over. And then we'll talk about the new series and books and everything that I want to read in 2023. Now, I don't do just like one book. I'll do like, I want to do this series, but as long as I get the first book read of the series, I'll consider it making my goal. If I don't get at least the first book read, then I kind of fail. But I would like to read the entire series, especially since I plan to read a lot of books this year. With that said, let's get into this list. So starting off, I'm going to be putting all of the pictures up in the corner here. That way I didn't have like 5 stacks of books surrounding me. So I'm just going to be putting up pictures. But the first one is Winterkeep. I unfortunately didn't make it to this, and I also didn't put it on my list because I thought I was going to get to it in December, and I didn't. But this is on my January TBR, so this will for sure be getting read. It is the plan. It's getting done. So it's not on the list, but it is one that is carrying over from the 22 list. Then I have Gilded. This is a trilogy. I wanted to read it so bad in 2022, and I just didn't get to it. I'm hopefully going to get to it in 2023, at least the first book. And this is about a Korean American girl who has a black belt in Taekwondo, and she ends up having, I think, to move to her grandmother's in Korea. And then there's some god who her ancestor like shunned and refused to marry, so I think he's gonna like show up and maybe try to claim her or punish her or something like that. And it just sounds like something I would absolutely love. I just don't know why I didn't get to it last year. I'm really looking forward to this, so hopefully I can start it as soon as possible. Then The Book of Life, which is the third and final book in A Discovery of Witches. I believe I did read the second book, Shadow of Night, I believe is what it's called, in 2022. But it was so slow, and it just was such a slog to get through that I didn't feel compelled to then read the next book. I put it, I think, on my December TBR, but again, didn't get to it. So I want to read this book, but at the same time, it's kind of a boring series. It's like the concept is good, but the writing style is like a boring history text, which, not my vibes, but I do kind of really want to finish up the series. But this is basically about a witch who is like hiding the fact that she is a witch, and this vampire who ends up like finding out that she found this text called Ashmole 87 or something like that, and like everybody wants it, and so like now she's having to like discover her witch powers, and it's like her relationship with this vampire, and it's kind of like an adult Twilight, but it's really boring. So I mean, if you like historical fiction written like a history text, you probably really like this. Otherwise, it's kind of a chore to get through, but I do want to finish it. Then I have From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I know there's a lot of controversy about this book series. Like, some people love it, some people don't. Some people like the first couple, and then they say it go downhill from there. There's been comments that the author's racist. I don't know if that's true, but they said some of the characters, it seems as if she's racist. But at the same time, it's like a vampire romance story, and I love vampires. I'll pretty much read anything with vampires in it. I don't care. So I've had the first 3 books on my Kindle since like 2021 when I got my Kindle, and I still haven't read the series. And I think it's part because I am worried about whether I'm going to like it or not, but I need to get it read. So it's about this girl who's like a maiden, and she's not allowed to like be in like a relationship with a guy, and she ends up getting this new guard, and then I think her and her guard actually have like this really steamy relationship, and that's pretty much all I know. I don't know, some people said like the different books, it feels like she rewrote the book, and then like she has a prequel series that they said is basically the same story but with different characters. So I don't know, but I want to give it a try. And I'm hoping I can get to it, even though it's been a while that I've been wanting to get to it and I haven't. So we'll see what happens. Then of Monsters and Madness, Jessica Vardy, I think, did this one. I don't remember. It's on the screen. But this is like a book inspired by Edgar Allan Poe. I'll read anything that is about Poe or inspired by Poe, you name it. I'm really surprised I didn't get to this one. I mean, I did have it in October and November. I did like where I put all of like the spooky, like gothic style books in a bag and like drew from there. And unfortunately, I did not draw this one, so I wasn't able to get to it because I wanted it for the spooky October, fall season. So I think that's why. But I do really want to get to this one, so I don't know if I'm just gonna read it whenever or if I'm gonna wait and actually set a TBR for October, November. I don't know, but I definitely want to get to this one because I've been getting a lot more Poe books and I want to try to get through them. But at the same time, I don't want to read all of them and then not have any like in the coming years, So, but I want to get to it. And then the last one that's carrying over from 2022 is Lair of Dreams, and this is the second book of the Diviner series. So technically, I did complete this one because I did read the first book in 2022. I just didn't read the entire series. I read the first book, and the dialogue really bothered me. Like, I don't like that 1920s, I don't know if you want to call it slang or whatever it is. I just didn't like the dialogue in the book. I did like the characters. I did like the whole like setting and the bad guy. Like all that was well done, but I didn't like when the characters talked to each other. I don't think I've never been a fan of the 1920s. That's like my least favorite era. And so I just didn't really enjoy it that much. But I bought all the Fairy Loot special edition books, and everyone raves about this series. And I have heard that I think like the second the second or third book apparently is like really, really good. So maybe it will get better. I don't know, but the dialogue, ugh. So yeah, I at least want to read the second book next year, or I want to read the second book in 2023, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But I put it on here to kind of force me to, Now, to get to the books that weren't on my previous list, some of these are like new books that I got in 2022 that I just wasn't able to get to, and some were books that I've had and they just weren't a priority. So I need to read them because I've owned them for a while. So we have The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. This one, I was actually waiting for my Fairy Loot copy to arrive because I'm not buying like the normal editions and the Fairy Loot. I just bought the Fairy Loot. So I just got this one in December. I read the first book in, maybe it's 2021. I think it came out in the summer of 2021. So it's been a couple years, or will be a couple years here soon. So I'm hoping to get this one done. But this was, the first book was Six Crimson Cranes, and it's like a retelling of The Wild Swans. And I really, really liked it. I really enjoyed it. So I'll definitely be reading this one in 2023. Then we have The Atlas Paradox, which is the sequel of The Atlas 6, which is by Olivia Blake. This is another book that so many people have talked about. People either love it or they dislike it. I was kind of in the middle. I can't remember if I gave it a 3.5 or 4 star. I did enjoy it, but I kind of saw where it was going to, but not exactly how it was done. So the ending kind of did surprise me a little bit. I do like the characters. I did like the illustrations throughout the book. I did enjoy it, and I did read it in 2022. So I probably will more than likely read this one in 2023. Then I have The Iron Sword by Julie Kagawa. This is the second book of it's the Iron Fae series, but it's about Puck. It's like the third series within this series. And the third and final book, I believe, is coming out in April. So I want to read both of those in 2023 to get the Iron Fae series completely finished. I don't think she's going to be writing anymore for this world, but could be wrong. But it'd be nice to wrap it up and have the series completed. Which, if you didn't know what the Iron Fae is about, it's about this girl named Megan who finds out that her dad is King Oberon, I believe. And so she's half human, half Fae. And she ends up going to the Fae world to save her brother, her human brother. And she meets Grimalkin, who's my favorite character of any book. He is such a sassy cat. I love him. And she meets one of the Unseelie princes, I believe. He's an Unseelie prince. And of course they fall in love. And then they have a kid. and her brother ends up having his own like trilogy, and then Puck, who's like her best friend, and like growing up she didn't realize that he was a fairy. The last trilogy is about him. Well, technically the second trilogy is about Ethan and their son. But yeah, so it's like this whole big world set in basically the Fae world, and I love it. It's great. I highly recommend it. Then I have A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I think I got the trilogy box set this past fall. So it's a fairly brand new series to me. I think the first V.E. Schwab book I read was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue in 2021, and then I read Gallant in 2022. So I would like to at least read the first book of this series, or potentially all of them. That would be awesome too, to get all of them read. I believe this is like a fantasy story that's about 4 Londons and like this girl who can like travel between all 4 Londons, which are I think like different dimensions or something like that. And some people love this, some people don't like it. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna think. I have liked both of her books that I read previously. I loved Addie LaRue, but Gallant was just okay. So I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this one, but I'm excited for it. I really want to read this entire series because I do like her writing, so I'm expecting good things from this book series. And then I have The Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I actually read her Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares duology in 2022, so I would like to read all 3 of these books because I have previously read the first book in this trilogy, but I never continued it. I don't know why. I had all the books. I then, this year, went and rebought the paperback trilogy with the new covers that are like really cool looking with like the neon colors and everything. So I would really like to get all of that read. And I honestly don't remember anything about it. I know it's a YA fantasy. I think it's like urban fantasy. And I think the girl is like some type of creature, has some type of power, and she doesn't know or something like that, I believe. But I'm not 100% sure. I remember really liking the first book, but it was, I don't know, a decade ago that I read it, so I don't remember anything. But I am excited to read it because I really like the Strange the Dreamer duology. Then I have The Queen of Nothing, which is the 3rd and final book in the Cruel Prince series, and that is actually on my January TBR, so I will definitely be getting to this. And also How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. I'm going to be reading both of those in January, so this for sure will be getting read. Then I have King of Stars. So this is a duology. I think it's King of Stars, Rule of Wolves, and then I still need to read like the Legend book or something like that. It's like a companion novel type of thing that has a whole bunch of like fairy tale stories that are related to the Grishaverse. So I would like to get all 3 of those read because I really liked Shadow and Bone. And unpopular opinion here, but I really didn't like Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. Like, I thought they were okay, but I didn't love them. But I did really like Nikolai from Shadow and Bone, so I'm really hoping this duology I will like. Fingers crossed, but we will see. And then I want to read Jane Eyre. I plan to read this in 2022. I've never read it. I've watched like a movie adaptation of it. I think I've read stuff inspired by it, but I haven't actually read the original text, and I really need to do this. Plus, also not only that, but I think Kelly Creog is coming out with a book that's like a reimagining of this book, and I kind of want to read Jane Eyre before I read the retelling. This has to happen this year because I love Kelly Creog and I need to read all of her books. So, I hope you know what it's about. It's a classic. It's by one of the Bronte sisters, so, you know. Legend by Marie Lu. This is a quartet. I read Legend, again, years ago. I had books 1, 2, and 3, and I didn't have the 4th book. So this past, in 2022, I went and bought the 4th book, and all of them were hardcover except the first book. So I then went and bought the first book in hardcover. And I believe this is like a dystopian type story. It's about I think it's about a criminal who killed someone's brother. But it, like, the reasoning, like, there was a reason for it. It wasn't just outright murder. And they, like, meet the person's brother, and, like, they're, like, enemies, but they have to work together to do something. I believe is what it was about. Yet again, been years since I read the first book, but I remember enjoying it. And I haven't read a lot of dystopian stories recently, so I kind of want to get back into that, you know? And I like the old 2010s era of YA, like, that's my bread and butter. So, want to get this series finally read. Then I have The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. I love Gothic literature, and I have not read anything by Anne Radcliffe. What is wrong with me? Of course, my Barnes & Noble doesn't have any of her books. Not a single one. And it's really hard to actually find, at least where I live in Maryland, it's really hard to find her books. So I'm probably gonna have to do all of like Kindle. Yeah, this is one of like, it's like a gothic classic. I think it's about some girl who gets kidnapped or something. I'm not really sure, but I believe Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin did like a whole like gothic literature, like what he has read, what he hasn't read, and he was saying like this was one of her better ones. So I want to give it a try because I need to read some Anne Radcliffe. Then I have The Madman's Daughter by Megan Shepherd. This is a trilogy. I talked about this a lot in 2022 and I didn't get to it. I've had like been wanting to read this series since it first came out, and I didn't buy it until 2022. The first book is a retelling of The Isle of Dr. Moreau. The second book, I believe, is a retelling of Frankenstein, and the third book is a retelling of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But we have I think her name's Juliet? I don't know. Basically, Dr. Moreau's daughter is the main character in all three books, but they're all retellings of different gothic novels. So I'm super excited for this. I'm hoping to maybe start this in February. I definitely want to get this series done in 2023. This is a priority. I need to get it read because I think I'm going to love it. Then I have Deadlocked by Charlaine Harris. Yes. I have 2 books of the Sookie Stackhouse series left to read. I've slowly been reading the books over the years, and I just have 2 left, and I want to get them finished. So, I at least want to read, I think there's 12 books? There's either 12 or 13 books, so I need to read at least the second to last one. I'd like to read both. Then I also have like some short story collections and like a companion like information book or whatever. I would like to get it all read. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I sure hope so. And if Sookie Stackhouse, the True Blood TV series is like imagined from that series, even though I cannot watch True Blood. I watched the first episode and I thought it was horrible. But I love the books. So I really want to get the series finished. Then I have Fight Club. This is the 8th book, I think, of the Morganville Vampire series. Again, this is a series I like started collecting it, I think, when the first 3 or 4 books were out. And I love the first book. I love the first book so much, and it ended on a cliffhanger. I immediately went back to Barnes & Noble the next day and like bought all the books that were available. And I got up to like book 8, and then I just didn't read anymore. And I think I just ended up with so many books that there were other vampire stories that I wanted to read more. So I think it was either in 2020, I think it was in 2021, I finally bought all 15 books in the series so that I could finish it, and I haven't read anymore. So I really would like to finish the series. And I think they're all like around the 200 page mark. So I could easily throw this on every single month, or maybe do it as a mood read. I don't really know. But it would be easy to get through. I just need to actually take it off my shelf and put it on my TBR. But the Morganville Vampires, I believe the main character is Claire. And I think she's in college. And she ends up working with like this crazy vampire, like mad scientist. I think all the vampires are going crazy, and he's trying to create a serum to like stop the vampires from going crazy. And so like it's kind of dark because you have vampires going crazy and like killing people, and like Claire is like concerned about whether she's gonna get murdered, or like the guy who's creating this serum is also kind of going crazy, and she was in some dangerous situations with him, like, feared for her life. It's just really fascinating. Like, it's such a good series, and I yet again don't know why I never continue with it, because as I'm thinking about right now, I want to go and grab the book and pick it up because it was that good. Yeah, so if you haven't read this series, it's amazing. It's a commitment because it's like 15 books long, but it's amazing. Next up is The One by Kiera Cass. This is the 3rd book in the Selection series. I started reading this series as soon as it came out, and I absolutely loved it, and I've never finished it. I have the 3rd book, and then I have like the sequel spin-off, and I think there was like a short story collection too. So I kind of would finally like to finish reading that series because I loved it. And I have all the books, and I just haven't gotten to it. The Selection series is about America, who is selected from like this group of or like the girls throughout the nation to compete in like this competition almost to win the prince's heart and to marry him. But she kind of is in love with her best friend. And in this world, you can't, I don't know if you can't have sex until you're married, or if you can't have sex until you're adult. And if you do have sex, then I think you get killed or something like that. Like, it's a dystopian world. And there's a lot of, like, rules and regulations about, like, you know, a women's bodies. I think it goes for guys, too. They're not allowed to have sex before a certain time, too. But it seems like it's more of a bad thing for the girls, at least if I remember correctly. But she then starts having feelings for the prince. And it's not like a dangerous competition. It's more like, you know, dressing up in pretty clothes and, like, going on dates. And it's basically like The Bachelor. But you're fighting for a prince or whatever. So it's cute. It's cheesy. It's not really deep, but I liked it, and I want to finish reading it. So next I have Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is kind of, I think it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling, if I remember, but it follows, like, the Queen. And I also believe it is a standalone. So I have this on my Kindle, and I've been wanting to read it for a while because I love reading Alice in Wonderland retellings. I don't know if I'll like this or not, but we can try it. Because this is by the same person who wrote The Lunar Chronicles, and that series is okay. I liked parts of it. Like, I think Scarlet was my favorite book, and then all the rest were kind of like, eh. Which, speaking of, my next one is Fairest. So I'm actually using them for my stand. I have Fairest and Stars Above, which I think Fairest is like a novella or short story about the evil queen in the Lunar Chronicles. And then Stars Above is like a collection of like short stories set in the same world. So I really want to get those finished and read because I actually want to unhaul the whole series. And then Fairy Loot is coming out with a really pretty special edition of the first 4 books. I basically just want to get those so that they look pretty on my shelves. I don't think I'm ever actually going to reread them again. So I don't need Fairest and Stars Above sitting on my shelves. They need to get read. I need to finish up the series and say bye-bye. But at the same time, the books that Fairy Loot is coming out with are immaculate. So pretty. Some of the prettiest books I think I've ever seen. So I need them for my shelves. But I also need room for them on my shelf. Then I have Ready Player 2. So I read Ready Player 1 years ago. And I watched the movie. And I have the hardcover from Book of the Month. And it's literally staring at me. It's on the shelf right over there. And it's been staring at me and mocking me. And I really liked Ready Player 1. But for some reason, I've just never reached for Ready Player 2. So, this is the time to do that. Now, if you didn't know what Ready Player 1 is about, this really wealthy guy who created, I believe it's called The Oasis, which is this really popular, like, virtual reality game where pretty much everyone logs into, and that's where you live your life, is in this virtual reality. The guy dies, and he has left 3 Easter eggs in the Oasis, and whoever finds all 3 inherits his fortune, inherits the game. He inherits everything. Basically, they're going to become a trillionaire overnight. Well, we follow our main character. He loves the 80s pop culture just like the guy who created the Oasis. He ends up finding the first Easter egg, and then from there he's like trying to discover clues, but he's also having to fight with other people because now everyone sees him as a threat because he found the first Easter egg. And it's just so good. It's intense, it's thrilling, and if you love 80s pop culture, this is the vibes. I don't know if Ready Player 2 is also going to have those 80s pop culture vibes, but Ready Player 1 had them all. It was great. And then the final book on this list is Crystal Kingdom by Amanda Hocking. I haven't really talked about Amanda Hocking that much on my channel. Just, I have like all of her books almost. I think there's like 2 series of hers I don't have, but like everything else I own. And I love her. She wrote the Trill Trilogy. Well, Crystal Kingdom is the 3rd book in the 2nd trilogy set in the same world as the Trill Trilogy. And then there's a 3rd trilogy set in the same world. So altogether there's 9 books in this world. And I am technically needing to read book 6 to finish that trilogy so I can then start the next trilogy. I also have some other books of hers that I really need to read. I need to read some more of her work because I love her. She's so great. And like, no one talks about her. No one. I have not seen a single YouTuber this year or whenever talk about her. She's amazing. I love her. She wrote a Siren series. She's written a Valkyrie series. She did a vampire series. I think she did a dystopian series. Like, she has everything. And her Trill series is pretty much like the Fae. The Trill are, I think they're trolls. They're more like trolls, but the description and everything are more like fairies, but they like to walk barefoot, and I think they only eat like plant-based diets, and they live in like, they have different kingdoms and things, and like in the first book, our main girl character, I think she was a changeling, if I remember correctly. And so she finds out that she's actually a Trill, and she ends up being taken to the Trill world. And it's very interesting because the Trill make their money by taking their children and putting them in place of like a wealthy family. Like they take their child and put the Trill child in the place, so that when the child then becomes of age to inherit their fortune, they then bring them back, so they get all that money from the human world. And so that is kind of how they are able to afford their society, is by these changelings and the inheritance that they get, even though it's not their inheritance. So they're essentially stealing money from the human world. But it's just like so fascinating, and it's so good. And then of course there's like political stuff going on between the different like realms or towns or whatever they are. And I highly recommend it. If you've not read it, it is good. Again, peak like 2010s YA urban fantasy. That is all of the books that I want. Well, not all of the books, but those are the 23 books that I want to read in 2023. Let me know down in the comments below if you want to read any of these books, or what books you want to read in 2023. Most of mine are all like, I don't have any new releases on it because I'll just probably mood read those as I go. But I really need to get through my backlog of books. So I need to get books that I've had on my shelf for years read. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you got all the way to the end, please leave me the rabbit emoji, since it is 2023 is the year of the rabbit. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye!